Welcome to PH Insight. Know the force behind the flag. Whether it's warships, fighter jets, or the next big defense move. If it matters to Philippine security, it's here. According to Teodoro, the Department of National Defense, DND, still has around 9 billion Cuban pesos left from the 35 billion Cuban pesos programmed funding for 2025 under the revised AFP modernization program. On paper, this should be enough to start the process of acquiring the first batch of up to 20 multirole fighters, a project widely reported to favor Sweden's Saab AB and its JAS-39 Gripen. But there's a catch. The DND cannot yet touch the unprogrammed funds, the additional pool of money intended for big-ticket projects like fighter jets, submarines, and missile systems. By law, the DND must first use at least 80% of programmed funds before it can access these unprogrammed allocations. Since that threshold has not been met, the extra money is effectively locked away. In simpler terms, the DND does have billions on hand, but not enough to comfortably pay for a deal as massive as the MRF project, unless it can guarantee access to those standby funds. When Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. faced lawmakers in a recent congressional hearing, he did more than provide routine updates on the armed forces of the Philippines Modernization Program, AFPMP. His replies gave the public a clearer picture of why one of the country's most important defense projects, the acquisition of multirole fighters, MRFs, for the Philippine Air Force, remains unsigned despite years of anticipation and billions of pesos already available. For ordinary observers, the delay has been puzzling. After all, the Philippines has long recognized its need for advanced fighter jets. With tensions rising in the West Philippine Sea, the absence of a capable air superiority fleet leaves the country vulnerable. The Air Force currently relies on the FA-50 Fighting Eagle, a light combat aircraft better suited for training and limited strike missions. True multirole fighters, capable of air defense, interdiction, and long-range patrols, have yet to arrive. So why has the deal not been finalized? The answer, as Teodoro explained, lies not just in the availability of funds, but in the sustainability of payments once the contract is signed. Teodoro stressed that the issue is not whether the Philippines can sign a contract, but whether it can sustain the financial obligations that follow. He outlined two main challenges. 1. Restrictions on soft loans. Aircraft suppliers, including Sweden, Italy, France, and South Korea, have offered soft loans, financing packages that allow governments to pay for military equipment over extended periods, often at low interest. Such arrangements are common worldwide and can make costly purchases more manageable. However, Philippine law currently limits how much defense procurement can be financed by soft loans. Unless Congress passes amendments and the President signs them into law, the DND cannot fully utilize these attractive offers. This restriction applies not only to fighter jets but also to other big-ticket items like submarines and medium-range missile systems. 2. The limits of multi-year obligation authority. Without soft loans, the DND must rely on the multi-year obligation authority, which allows payment to be spread over several years. While useful, multi-year obligation authority has strict boundaries. If, for example, Saab were to deliver all 20 Gripens within 4 years, the Philippines would have to complete payments within roughly 5 years, including retention payments. The bulk of these payments would fall between the second and fourth years of delivery. The result? Annual multi-year obligation authority obligations could balloon to over 90 billion Cuban pesos once combined with other ongoing projects such as the Navy's offshore patrol vessels, the Air Force's FA-50 Block 70S, and the AFP's C-4 ISTER systems. That figure far exceeds the 35 to 50 billion Cuban pesos usually allocated each year for the modernization program. Triggering the MRF contract without new safeguards could therefore overwhelm the defense budget and stall other critical projects. This financial trap explains why Teodoro has been careful, even gun-shy, about triggering the MRF project. Signing a contract now, without firm guarantees, could saddle the Philippines with repayment obligations it cannot meet. Worse, it could crowd out funding for equally important modernization goals, from naval upgrades to missile defense. Yet Teodoro's stance is not purely pessimistic. In fact, he pointed out that the Department of Budget and Management, DBM, and the Department of Finance, DOF, have expressed willingness to help the DND manage its funding structure. Some lawmakers also voiced support for his idea of creating standby funds, essentially a safety net that ensures payments can be made even if annual allocations fall short. With these assurances, Teodoro suggested, the path toward signing the contract becomes more realistic. Saab Gripen vs. Lockheed Martin F-16. The financial debate has not stopped aircraft makers from fighting hard for the Philippine contract. Despite its higher price tag, the American F-16 remains in the running. Lockheed Martin has not given up on the Philippines, betting that the country's long-standing defense ties with the U.S. could sway the decision. The F-16's extensive global user base and compatibility with U.S. systems also add weight to its offer. The Swedish-made JAS-39 Gripen is widely seen as the frontrunner. Saab has marketed it as affordable, easy to maintain, and well-suited for countries with limited defense budgets. Its relatively low operating costs give it a clear advantage in a country where sustainability matters as much as initial purchase price. The rivalry underscores the strategic stakes. Beyond cost and performance, the MRF choice will shape alliances, training pipelines, and maintenance networks for decades. The MRF dilemma reflects a larger pattern in Philippine defense modernization, the tension between ambition and budgetary reality. For years, the AFP has announced big-ticket projects, only for them to stall due to funding shortfalls or political hurdles. The submarine program, for example, has been on the table for more than a decade but has yet to move forward. Missile acquisitions have also faced repeated delays. These experiences have likely reinforced Teodoro's cautious approach: better to wait for firm guarantees than to sign prematurely and risk a financial crunch. The timing of the MRF decision is especially sensitive given China's growing assertiveness in the West Philippine Sea. Incidents of harassment against Philippine vessels have become routine, and airspace monitoring has taken on new urgency. For the Air Force, acquiring MRFs is not just about prestige, it is about closing a critical capability gap. True fighter jets would give the Philippines a stronger deterrent, allow more credible air patrols, and integrate more effectively with allies conducting joint exercises in the region. Without them, the country remains heavily dependent on allies, particularly the United States, for air defense. If Teodoro secures the necessary legislative support, budgetary assurances, and possible amendments to soft loan laws, the MRF project could finally proceed before year-end. Such a move would mark a historic leap for the Philippine Air Force, finally equipping it with a true multirole fighter fleet. Until then, however, the project remains a delicate balancing act. It is a test not only of military ambition but also of financial discipline, political will, and strategic foresight. Teodoro's careful stance may frustrate those eager for quick progress, but it reflects a hard truth: buying fighter jets is not just about writing a check, it is about ensuring the country can sustain them without sacrificing other vital defense needs. Disclaimer: this article is a personal opinion and analysis based on publicly available information. It is not official policy and should not be mistaken for insider knowledge. There are no elements of fake news in this piece.